to another episode of the award-winning Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. Thank you very much for being here with us. It's time because football is back, and so are we. The illustrious, the magnanimous, the incredible Doug Mouton. I am the barely average Ross Jackson. We thank you very much for being here with us as we're taking a look ahead to Saints training camp.
Yeah, Saints training camp. And on this day, we got to hear from Mickey Loomis. It's the pre-training camp thing. He went 35 minutes, which to me says something about his attitude.
Yeah.
Like, he's all in. This guy's done this for a long time. He said he's done 40 training camps in his life, which the Saints are only 60 years old. So he's been here for roughly half of the Saints training camps, which is pretty incredible. And I got overall super positive vibes from him. And he is not an overly, I mean, he's always optimistic, but he's not, I don't see him as a crazy optimistic guy. I think he feels really good about what they put together.
Yeah, he's always struck me as being a little bit more pragmatic.
Pragmatic's a good word, yes.
Than optimism. Now, not to take away from Mickey Loomis, who described himself as an eternal optimist.
Yeah.
He tends to be optimistic.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But he tends to be a guy that can see where, hey, this is where the success can be found, but understanding that there are building blocks to get there. I thought he's been laying things like that out pretty well over the course of the past few times we talked about him. But it's just hard to ignore the little twinkle in his eye.
Yeah, it is very hard to ignore. All right, we want to show you what's on the menu tonight on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. And you know it's going to end with the cocktail, but it's going to begin with some meaty discussions. Our large plates. Look, we're going to hear a lot about Kellen Moore year 2, the growing level of confidence Mickey Loomis talked about, Mickey Loomis's level of confidence across the board, and also sort of the things he said that were unsolicited were very interesting. You brought up a few of those. Ross Jackson, deep dive in.
Oh, I do be listening.
You really do.
And then for the small plates here, we'll take a look at Chris Olave. Obviously, the big conversation around him with the contract negotiation right now, but even with those negotiations active, intends to participate in camp. And we'll also, of course, be taking a look at this guy, Tyler Shuck, Paris, the whole thing coming up, the whole thing of it going on with this exciting New Orleans Saints season.
Yeah, it is really looking like an exciting season coming up. I cannot wait to get it going, which is this week. Our dinner guest tonight, we're keeping it in-house. The comedy geniuses of Ricardo LeComp and Seth Lewis. We're doing an all in-house edition tonight. I love these guys. Yeah. This is, to me, the all-star team. And the drink that I am making tonight.
I cannot wait for this.
All right, here's the deal, Ross. Sometimes with drinks, I don't understand sometimes how they're not bigger. I made this at home. It's called a banana cart. Okay. It is unbelievably delicious. It's a spiced rum with a banana liqueur and a cinnamon simple syrup and a little lemon juice to bring it up. It's sweet, it's summery, it's Caribbean-y. Yes. I mean, I'm telling you, it is a beautiful drink.
I love it. With that many good things all in one glass, it's hard for it to.
It's a lot of good stuff. And look, Mickey Loomis talked about these two guys, Cam Jordan and Alvin Kamara. They both want to finish their career in New Orleans. He said, quote, that is meaningful to them and it's meaningful to us, which I thought was great. And he raved about Chris Olave. And I just want to show you, as they do the negotiations, Chris Olave was 5th in the NFL in most wide receiver targets. This is the company that Chris Olave keeps. Here's 1 through 6, and they are the biggest. Yes.
Those guys are pretty good.
Yes, that's the $40 million a year tier of wide receivers. Chris Olave was $15 million a year last year. He figures to get a significant increase in salary. But that is the company that he kept last year by how much this offense relied on him. And to me, the quote of the day from Mickey Loomis was that Chris Olave, quote, is an absolute joy to have on our team. Dang. You don't, as an employer, you don't say that about employees unless you are hell-bent on keeping them.
Yeah, unless you're the employee.
Right. I say that about me. I'm an absolute joy for Channel 4. Yes.
No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that is not light praise.
It is not.
By any stretch of the imagination, nor is that the kind of thing that you say when you're just trying to pacify the conversation. That is something that you say from a meaningful place. And one of the other things you mentioned about Cam Jordan and Alvin Kamara, guys that have mentioned that they wanted to be in New Orleans for a long time and how meaningful that is to him. Chris Olave said that too in recent interviews.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
do think that that helps to connect a couple of other dots about their sort of desire to keep him here in New Orleans.
And oversimplifying, I take that one line to mean the deal's going to get done, and it's not even going to be a big problem getting it done. Because obviously Chris Olave is motivated to get a massive paycheck. The Saints want Olave. He said the concussion history is a factor.
Yes, of course.
You have to play it in. It is a component. But when you say stuff like that, that means you think you're getting it done. I think that's what I read.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I think the biggest thing is just figuring out how much of the concussion history, the injury stuff, factors into the guarantees. And not even the total guarantees, right? Because there's total guarantee, but then there's guaranteed for injury, fully guaranteed. And so it's really that percentage of the contract. I think Chris Olave is going to be a $35+ million a year guy. He's going to come in above Drake London. Because you can go above in the APY, but then keep the guaranteed money tight so that you're protecting yourself as an organization while giving him sort of the face value of the excitement of the APY.
Wow, that would be something if he got that much, but he is clearly a huge part of this team. All right, when we come back, we're going to be joined by our full crew. Seth and Ricardo will join us. And don't forget, at 7 o'clock, we go on to the streaming channel. We're going to go to 7:30 on WWL Plus till 7 o'clock on Channel 4.
Just ignore me.
Wait, what are you doing?
I'm just dancing.
And welcome back to the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. We are joined by our full panel. That, of course, the amazing Seth Lewis. This, the effervescent Ricardo LeCompte.
It's me.
We are all here. We were all there today for Mickey Loomis talking.
Yes, absolutely. And we heard all of the glowing things that he said around the team, and in particular around Chris Olave and the conversation going on there. We know there's an active negotiation going on. What's your confidence level, Ricardo, that they get a contract done, let's say before week 1? And if you got a dollar figure, feel free to throw it in there.
I do feel confident. I feel like it is going to get done before week 1 kicks off. And I know Mickey Loomis was like, I don't ever want to be optimistic about getting a job done, because he's been in this position before where, hey, he feels like maybe he can't sign a guy and does. And in the reverse, it feels like he thinks he's going to get the guy and then he ends up going anywhere else. But this is a negotiation that's been going on since the offseason. I think it is just a matter of where does that money, where do they land on salary-wise? You showed that list of the top-tier wide receivers and targets in 25. Is he around that is he around that figure? Maybe. I think that's where they're kind of haggling. Like maybe they don't want to pay him elite money, but he'll get. I think he'll get a significant payday. I think a deal does get done before we start this regular season.
Yeah.
I think that the deal gets done, and it actually goes back to a conversation that we had last year around the trade deadline. Part of the reason why they kept Chris Olave is because of his skill. I think part of it is the expression of love. And you saw Mickey Loomis pay that back today when talking about he's always been a joy to be around. And then when you talk about the amount of investment that has been in Tyler Shuck this entire offseason, the last thing you want to do is get a begrudged number 1 option, you know what I mean?
That's
somebody
all good.
that does not want to be here. You want him to be someone that is comfortable, and you want Shuck to have that guy that he's so comfortable with, clearly with the way that they played late in the season.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I thought last year was the first year we saw Chris Olave at his full form.
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck unlocked what is beautiful about Chris Olave's game. Chris Olave is fluid.
It's amazing what accuracy can do.
And the ability to go deep. Yes, it really is. And Chris Olave runs beautiful routes. Like he is, it's so much fun to watch him play. And I honestly hadn't seen that until last year. A lot of the stuff about him going out of bounds and getting down, like that was his MO. Now it's a guy who runs beautiful routes, can get deep, and has this perfect combination with his quarterback.
And you saw it in splash plays. Like I remember like that Monday Night Football game against the Panthers when he has the one-handed catch. So you saw it in splashes, but we just had never seen it consistently, no matter if it was because of injuries, no matter if it was because of inconsistent quarterback play. It was a beautiful thing to watch. I didn't mean to direct that at you.
It's crazy the amount of investment somebody will like pour in when you have that quarterback in place, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like maybe
everybody looks better.
Maybe that effort level steps up just a little bit because I know that guy who's throwing me the rock is a little bit better than what the options were prior.
And you got him on a rookie contract. You got 2 starting tackles on rookie contracts. You got 2 starting cornerbacks on rookie contracts. Like, it allows you to do so much.
You have money
when it comes to all this.
All right, we got the first week of camp, and look, not a lot happens in the first week of camp, but give me one. Yes, give me one thing you want to watch. Can be the most important thing or the silliest thing. We're going to start silliest thing.
I don't know if this is silly. I think this is very important. The vendor out there during the training camp open practices, is he at top tier form? Is he able to get those water bottles? He's like, cold beer? Are people doing that? Is he getting that arm warmed up to get those drinks distributed to all the fans? Because he's got to be in mid-season form right out the gate on Thursday.
He's got to have the second livest arm out there.
Right.
He's
got to. Next to Tyler Shuck, he's got to do that. So that's my silly one. The one thing I am looking forward to is that we're entering this training camp this season knowing who the quarterback is, knowing that they can take that next step of let's start working situational. Let's see what we're doing. Because last year, the only thing we were really focused on was like, all right, who's doing better in this rep? Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler? Like every rep, we're just paying attention to how are they completing passes? How are they making their decisions? Now that the quarterback position is settled, now we're going to see how do they operate in certain situations, goal line situations, 2-minute drill. Like we get to pay more attention of the little intricate details that Kellen Moore has put in this offense now that he's got his quarterbacks out. I'm excited to see that in training camp.
Yeah, that's good. More big picture because we know that little
we know that part is solved.
I just want to see Jordan Tyson out.
Oh, that was mine! Oh, that was mine! Oh,
that's mine. Safe on second. So the big thing for me is, like, it's not because I think Jordan Tyson, like, that there's an injury problem or anything like that. Like, it's very clear. Mickey Loomis was super clear about this. There's a bunch of stuff that he could have been doing, but they have been super, super cautious about it. But, Doug, I have not gotten out of my mind what you said the last mandatory mini camp, I know you love when I say that, practice, when they were doing a walkthrough, but he was going at like
he was
100%.
running and shimmying, shaking DBs.
Right.
Everybody's looking at him like, what's this guy doing?
This week is the acclimation process. This is about getting ready. I want to see if he's going to have that same level of fervor and excitement once he hits the ball.
I love that. And that was mine. Just he is so obviously a spectacular athlete. I say this 100 times. One of my most fun things about sports are watching the amazing athletes do their thing, right? I just want to see him run. I want to see him run pass patterns. I want to see him shake when DBs are actually kind of playing him a little bit. I just want to see what Jordan Tyson looks like in full motion.
You want that first ooh moment.
Oh, wait,
that's what I'm waiting. Right.
For me, I'm going to go in a similar place. I'm so interested to watch all of the wide receivers. The competition at that position. Because I think you can argue that the Saints haven't been this deep as far as options are concerned at wide receiver since maybe some of the early days with Drew Brees. When you're talking about Devery Henderson and when you're talking about Lance Moore and whatnot, they have so many guys. They drafted 3 wide receivers. They traded or picked up off waivers 3 wide receivers before the season last year. It was the clearest indication of we're not good enough at this position. They have like overcorrected. I want to see who are the guys that make those splash plays. In the past, it's been a guy like Mason Tipton, who's on the PUP list to start. Like, who is that guy that stands out and makes his way onto this roster?
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's flip that around. And we've asked this a few different ways, but now on the eve of training camp, what is your boil water advice? What is the one thing potentially making you groan? You want to go first, Rob?
Yeah, I'll start because there were a couple of things that you mentioned, the things that Mickey Loomis mentioned that were unsolicited, right? And the 2 things that stuck out to me were offensive line and the starting cornerback room. He brought up those guys. He typically brought those groups up as positives, right? That the offensive line was there. They didn't miss a workout over the course of the offseason, anything like that. The excitement about the youngness, but also potential growth for guys like Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley. I think that those are 2 places that just about any fan is looking at and going, okay, that's where I'm not so sure when it comes to this roster. I think that his indication of those being important moments for him or important kind of hot plates for him, I think that's what I'm going to be watching.
And that's my boil water advisory too, is the cornerback position. Obviously, it's a very thin position. And when talking about the thing that stood out to me the most about Mickey Loomis today, it was that he talked about how the last 2 draft classes, he's expecting for them to have leaps. The rookies leaping into a second year. The second year leaping into a third year. He only mentioned 2 guys by name during that. It was Kool-Aid McKinstry and Quincy Riley. Those were the 2 guys. So clearly they know that a lot ride on their development, on them as cornerbacks, and them proving themselves as a number 1 corner when it comes to Kool-Aid and a number 2 corner when it comes to Quincy Riley.
Yeah, that's my ball water advisory too, is cornerback position. Because you can do a lot of things right on defense, and if you get beat deep and it's one of your corners, that can be an equalizer in a bad way. What you got?
Yeah, it sounds like we're beating a broken drum, but it really is cornerback depth. It's offensive line depth. It's a lot of these depth positions that if you lose your front tier guys, who are those guys that are going to step up? And I don't know right now going into the first day of training camp. I know they don't have their guys. We don't know who those guys are in case one of those guys, injuries are going to happen. And it probably will happen at training camp as well. But who are those guys that are going to step in the quarterback room, in the offensive line room? And you mentioned, it is kind of the unsolicited offensive line, cornerback position, calling Kool-Aid by name, giving rave reviews about Cesar Ruiz. You know, that's what kind of concerns me, because he knows if that position falls off, either one, that backups, it could get a little bit hairy.
Maybe he's mentioning the things he's a little worried about. Maybe trying to prop up the confidence.
Sometimes you got to speak it into existence.
Guys, sometimes
it's going to work out.
Everything's going to be good. All right, you know what time it is, Ross?
Yes, it's time for last call.
When we come back, we're going to make a drink, have a last thing. Stick with us for more of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
All right, everybody, the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show rolls along. And look, we don't just say
Wait. You didn't say award. You should have started with award winning.
Well, I was about to say, we don't just say about it, we be about it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you to the New Orleans Press Club for recognizing the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show as the best talk show in New Orleans. Thank you.
These guys are great.
Now, here is...
Well done.
You guys are great. Thank you. Now, here is the award-winning segment, I'd like to call it, Last Call. This is where we make a drink and we give a thing. Doug, what's on tap today for the drink?
This is a beautiful Caribbean-inspired summer drink. I've actually poured it out during the break because I'm so slow that I need to get it done. All right, it starts with the Don Q. This is a spectacular Puerto Rican spiced rum.
Yes, it is.
It is delicious on its own, but you know what? It's also delicious in a drink. You take an ounce and a half of that, which is a full shot, with a half an ounce of a banana liqueur. So you add a little banana to a spiced rum. If that doesn't go together, I don't know what does. With a half an ounce of a cinnamon simple syrup, which I made at the Mouton house, and it's delicious. So we're adding cinnamon to rum and banana, of course. And then we brighten it up with 1 ounce of hand-squeezed lemon juice. And it is I don't know how this drink isn't a thing, because it is delicious. And me and my son Quentin had a couple of them the other day. It was like, I am making that on the show. Because it should be bigger than it is. All right.
All right, well, while you shake them up, Ricardo, why don't you start us off with your last call?
All right, well, I'll start with my last call going. There were 2 big signings, I think, in the offseason, or at least kind of getting the contract settled, was getting Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara situations both settled. Those are 2 veterans who are going to be in this locker room. And as Mickey Loomis said today, he said there is still something left in the tank with both guys. I mean, they wouldn't sign him if they didn't believe that. But also what he can provide for this young team. This young team that he is optimistic about having that veteran leadership of Cam Jordan and Alvin Kamara, both on offense and defense, is going to be so paramount for this team if they want to have any success. They lost a big leader like Demario Davis as a vet last year. But having those 2 guys back, having their situation settled, showing an Alvin Kamara who's willing to have a lesser role in this running back room, for a Cam Jordan who's willing to come back, and both guys wanting to be Saints, ending their careers here in New Orleans, I think is going to be big for this locker room moving into the season.
Yeah, players want to be here.
They want to be here.
That's a great feeling to have as an organization. Seth, what about you, bud?
So for me, my last call is on Travis Etienne. I think that of all of the things that we saw the Saints improve late in the season, the one thing that never really found its footing is the ground game. And they have signed a guy in Travis Etienne who does that, as well as it kind of continues this trend of the last couple years where they've signed local guys where putting on the black and gold means something much more than just like, okay, this is a dream opportunity to be in the NFL. It's like, no, I watched that team and I was a fan of that team growing up. Him and his brother pretending to be Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush. So I think that's my my final call.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's such a big part of all this too, is that idea of bringing in these folks that understand the importance and the connection to the community. All right, here we go.
That's some good mixing
Toast
right
to the
there.
football
All right.
season.
Toast to the football season.
Man,
to optimism.
We are
Optimism,
here.
a lot of optimism. Everyone's optimistic.
There we go.
We haven't cheers to that in a long time.
Cheers.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I told
All
you.
right.
Oh, wow. I've never had
give me one thing
banana
you get.
liqueur now.
It's
I've never
good.
had banana liqueur before, but now it's all that I want.
Banana and lemon.
It's called the
What a
yes.
what a melt. Like that.
And that rum is awesome. All right, let me give you mine real
Yeah,
quick.
please,
Look,
go for it.
I am super optimistic about this football season, and to me, the biggest reason is because of Tyler Shuck.
Yeah.
And Mickey Loomis talked about him today, about the maturity that he's demonstrated, about the leadership he's demonstrated. He's done everything the right way. The 26-year-old quarterback was the right guy to draw, a 25-year-old at the time, 26 now. The maturity has been his biggest advantage. I love everything about what they did to build around him.
Yeah.
That's my optimism, is all based on Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, I love it. I'm actually going to piggyback right on top of that. Here's my big thing. We have a lot of these conversations around, could Tyler Shuck be the guy? Will Tyler Shuck be the guy? Here's the opportunity for him to prove that he's the guy. I think he's the guy. I'm just gonna say
I do
it.
too. Right.
I think he is the guy. And I think that, like, it's so, nerving and scary sometimes to come out and just be like, yeah, I believe in this player. But when you really look at everything that Tyler Shuck has done from a clutch standpoint, from a performance standpoint, from a community standpoint and beyond, where is the concern? Where is the thing that will stand in his way that doesn't stand in any other quarterback's way already? Health, and then, of course, development. But those are things that are standard across the league no matter what. I think Tyler Shuck's the guy, and this is going to be a super fun season to watch that all come to fruition.
I agree. Do we want to do that?
I was going to say, you know who else is the guy?
Who's that?
Doug Mouton.
Yes, he is. That's who we're taking shots to.
That's right.
Oh, no, really?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
100%. This is the final time that we'll have all four of us together here to do an Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show as Doug continues on with his sure to be very bright career as he continues on with us. And we are so thankful to you. I am incredibly thankful. You made so many of my dreams come true, and I'm sure these guys can say that.
The morning show is going to be better.
The morning show will be better with that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Cheers.
All right,
Cheers to all of
cheers
you.
to the football season again.
Oh, and come and join us over on the WWL Plus app as we continue on here as well for our nightcap. Don't miss out. Let me take my shot.
Do your thing.
Yeah, switch to WWL Plus now.
See you over there.
Oh, that is nice.
That's really.
All right, welcome back to the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, the Nightcap edition. If you're joining us here, coming over from Channel 4, we appreciate you very much being here with us. We will continue on our conversation here. Ricardo LeCompte, Doug Mouton, Seth Lewis, and Ross. And me, Ross Jackson.
No, you said, but like average run, like less than that? No. Stupendous, spectacular.
See, he said stupendous. See what he
And-
did?
Yeah, that almost sounds like an insult.
I'm not gonna lie.
And
Oh.
All right, I got one.
I got a ration. I just needed it.
Have another.
Yeah.
All right, I got a question from Mickey Loomis's pre-training camp.
Yes.
What is one thing, beyond the things we've talked about so far, something that jumped out to you as, you know what, that is really interesting stuff? You want to start us out, Ross?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me was when he was talking a little bit about like how they go about the acquisition process moving forward. The Saints were super, my voice cracked. The Saints were they were super active last year in the trade market during the preseason. They hadn't really landed like a lot of tackle depth in there. They got Kelvin Banks Jr. to help out at left tackle, but then they wanted some more tackle depth. They went and they traded for Austin Richards from the Dallas Cowboys. They didn't ever land that wide receiver at all. They traded with the Denver Broncos to get Devon Vele here, who was like a revelation during that 3-game stretch towards the end of the season. Very excited to see what he does next. And then they weren't able to really find that backup center within the options that they had, so they traded for Luke Fortner, who was a massive win for them.
Massive.
And he talked a little bit about how the conversations already go? Where do you feel like you're a little heavy? Where do you feel like you're a little light? All these other things, and how those conversations really start to become actionable mid-August. So that will be a time to watch as another sort of transaction period coming through training camp and going into the preseason as an opportunity for them to potentially look to grab another player.
Well, let me call a 20 on that one. Yeah. Where, if you look, last year and they also went out and got Jalen Polk.
Right.
Like they clearly looked at the wide receiver
Right.
room and said, let's upgrade here.
And Trey Palmer too.
What's that?
Trey Palmer off of waivers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you had to say one area where you think they might be looking at who else is offering what area might they be a little thin and want to go get somebody?
Yeah, I don't know if they would consider themselves thin here, but when I look at the same pattern of, hey, not a lot of action happening at the position, I wonder if linebacker becomes an option there, just in terms of bolstering the depth. They have a lot of promise in that room. But that's a position group that didn't see a lot of turnover. It saw a large quality of turnover because you lost to Mario Davis, and then you counteracted that by bringing in Caden Ellis.
Sure.
That's awesome in terms of what you gained. That's troubling in terms of what you lost. But outside of that, the only other thing that they did was sign Jackson Sermon, who's coming in to compete as a sixth linebacker that could potentially land in the practice squad, son of Peter Sermon, the team's linebacker coach. And so I just wonder if the right opportunity became available to where there could be a guy that would be rotational at the position, or maybe help from a special team side along with Isaiah Stallbird and Jalen Ford. The thing is that I've named every linebacker already. Well, once I say Danny Stutzman. And so how many other guys do you have to rotate here? Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And so that might be the position that I think could be actionable.
And an aside, Isaiah Stallbird is a guy, when I talked to Brandon Staley at the end of minicamp, was a guy that he brought up as a guy that he loved last year.
Yeah.
Stallbird may be involved more than he was last year.
Yeah.
He did the one thing last year, rushing the passer. He might do more this year.
Yeah.
What was something you heard from Mickey Loomis today that you put an asterisk by?
So, and y'all mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but certainly when he mentioned not only how we all know that the NFL is structured in a way where teams can go from worst to first.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why the Saints losing that final game to the Falcons, obviously the Saints never want to lose to the Falcons. That's obvious. But them losing and ending up with a fourth place schedule was so important because the difference is literally in some cases, I want to say it's not the Rams, but it's another team that could be in the playoffs if you're talking about a division that had 3 playoff teams. And I remember when I was looking at a team's schedule, I was like, it probably was the Falcons.
Yeah.
Because when I looked at the Falcons schedule, obviously the Falcons versus the Saints schedule, and I think the Falcons have a very talented team. The one big question for them is quarterback, right?
Just the one.
Just the one. That's a big question. Big question. But the thing that I noticed was with those third place games, that made their schedule definitely more difficult.
Yeah.
In their first 8 weeks, they could tap out by the time their first 8 weeks are done. They could be 2-6, and we give credit to the Saints for having a lot of resolve last year when it wasn't going well, but they were still keeping the same message of development and we're working these things out. Like a team that talented might not be as patient, right? And the difference is some of those third place teams versus the Saints getting a Giants in that situation.
Yeah, right.
Like they get the Commanders, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they're going to get the Commanders.
They get the Browns
with Jaden Daniels.
They get the Browns, right.
And
maybe Brandon Ayuk.
Oh my God.
But you're right. I mean, Mickey Loomis talked about how you're the old general manager that he worked with, who told him that you're 3 games away from a mutiny.
Yeah.
The Saints held strong despite their longer than 3-game losing streak. Not every team is guaranteed.
No, and to me that was Cam Jordan's biggest influence, and the reason why you had to have him back was Cam Jordan, a future Pro Football Hall of Famer, was the one guy who was the most positive and was keeping the thing together when they were 2-10. And what Cam Jordan did last year, despite the double-digit sacks, which are incredible enough for a guy at his age, what he did in that locker room was Herculean to keep that team together, and a big reason why they got to go.
I think most of those veterans, too, because I think the losing they had under Dennis Allen and the messages we were getting from some of those veterans versus the messages we got last season from them, they were truly optimistic. They weren't, it's a really good drink. They were really optimistic that,
I saw you.
It was almost almost like, under DA, when they were losing, they were like, yeah, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Versus last year, when they were losing, it was like,
we're going to get there.
We're going to get there.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of pieces, but we're going to get there. And just the branding of the messages from what we saw versus in 2 different losing seasons, it's like their losing was a little better here versus what it was back there.
Yeah.
So, like, that was big from those veterans, as you were saying. I have two points, a bigger and a smaller point for what we said from Mickey Loomis.
That wasn't the point.
That was the response.
It's like, beer.
Ladies and gentlemen, sit back for the next 30 minutes.
Hey, the Ricardo LaCombe
Show.
Show.
Sports show, everybody.
Which, by the way, this is us in the sports. Like I'm
All the time.
I'm so happy this is the first time.
It's usually dumber.
Yeah, it's usually dumber.
We can dumb this thing.
We can dumb,
once.
but it's one of those things where this is the first time that the 4 of us have all been sitting here together, and it's you. And obviously, most days it's the 3 of us. But even when Ross is in there, it's just the conversation is so stupid.
We have a sports photographer named Adam Ney who has built an edit studio outside of the sports office
to not deal with us
because we can't deal with us like it's too much.
And we commonly on Sundays have to tell each other, all right, like, I got to get some work.
I got to get some work.
I got to get some work done. Like, I got to get some work done.
But I will say, to our credit, we get it done.
We do get it done. Always.
We have fun and we get it
we
done.
sweat sometimes.
That's why we're here.
We
Not
sweat
as efficiently as
we sweat sometimes at the deadline, but we do get it done. I agree with you.
Yes, and I was not anti-Adam Ney. We are very
we love
pro
it.
Continue to your 5 points.
Excuse me, my name.
All right, your 11 points. Go ahead.
19 and a half points. Here we
Time
go.
for the presentation. Bring up the slideshow, please. Bring up the slideshow, please.
If you could do that right now. No. From that press conference today, and I think we've already touched about the optimism that Mickey Loomis has. And part of the optimism, as I'm seeing it, there was like a sense of like
Classic.
It was a measured, as Doug goes and makes his drink and almost tripped over everything.
Everything's fine.
There was a measured confidence from Mickey Loomis today.
Yeah.
And I say a measured confidence in this fact that when they are good, oh boy, I think Mickey Loomis and company, that whole organization,
Doug,
are
I'm handing
feeling themselves
100%.
when they know they're good.
Yeah.
There's a measured confidence because he knows that these young guys, if they all perform to their potential, they've got something cooking there on Airline Drive.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have said a few years back after Drew Brees retired in that transition was, man, just push the reset button.
Yes.
Get this thing reset.
And it took him a little while to do
And
that.
and you see the benefit of the reset.
Right. And so it was like until he went all in on the reset and not kind of just like dancing around this, like we're close, we're just a quarterback away.
Yeah.
Maybe we're a Jameis Winston away, or maybe we're a couple of pieces on different positions away. Until he just said, you know what, let me lean into the young talent that I have.
Yeah.
And at this press conference today, we learned that we felt like he has faith in that young talent in the sense that he feels that they're going to reach their potential. He feels that all these positions, even though he's naming that by name, it was almost kind of like a call out, like, hey, I called Kool-Aid. I called you out. Like, I expect you to be my lead cornerback, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if he's going Vernon Broughton, like, hey, we need depth in the interior defensive line. Like, I expect you to be the guy, the second year, kind of make those strides. At least he's leaning into the fact that this is the rebuild. I feel like this talent can lift us to potential, and I've got my guy. I've got my quarterback, and Tyler Shuck is there. So, like, that measured confidence was back. And it was different from probably the messaging last year where it was like, there's a lot of unknowns.
Well, it was such a different situation last year,
And it was a
right?
different
Like,
situation.
they thought they had their quarterback, then they didn't,
and then he retires,
and then they didn't, and then they did again. Like,
so how do you? Yeah. So now it's like, all right, I've got my pieces. I've got my quarterback, which I needed.
Yeah.
And I've got such young talent at different positions. I feel good about that. So that's where I got where it was like finally he is now all bought into the rebuild.
Yeah.
And now he's going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
Now he probably should have done it a couple of years ago, but I think he's going to benefit.
But the truth is, all things work out in the timing that they need to.
Yep.
Because if they had done it a couple years before that, I mean, look, that's prophetic.
Yeah.
Some of that is biblical.
That was nice. That was good.
But the truth is, it happened at the time that it needed to.
Yep.
Because if it had happened earlier, then maybe Tyler Shuck is not the guy.
Maybe you're reaching for a quarterback that wasn't the guy.
Right.
Now, some of that might be divine timing, right? Because we all agree that the rebuild should have happened earlier.
Right.
But it did happen for a reason, and I believe that it's because Tyler Shuck was supposed to be here. And to what you said, like as far as having that optimism and people being cautious, my cautious was we all predicted the Saints to win 9 games this year. Right. My cautious was not picking them to win more. Right. Because as I looked at the schedule, I saw you could talk me into 10. Easy. You could talk me into 11 based on the schedule. Again, if they had a first place or second place schedule, I would not be talking about
based on the schedule.
It's based on their schedule. There are a lot of games where, like last year, when we were talking about the schedule, it's like, okay, at the end of the season, they're going to play the Titans, they're going to play the Jets, and those are winnable games. But the Titans and the Jets were looking at the Saints as winnable games too.
Of course.
Now the Saints go into a lot more games saying we're not scared of that team.
Right.
Like that team is not that team is not a Super Bowl contender.
Right. Yeah.
And so like that's the part that is so interesting to me on just timing going in the way. I'm actually interested to hear this from you because we were all in Metairie earlier today. In Metairie. But because of like having to get this show together and whatnot, obviously y'all left when Kellen Moore spoke.
Well, I had Kellen Moore. I did listen a little bit.
You listened to Kellen Moore. What I found, because Kellen Moore is pretty cookie cutter. It's the same.
Yeah, he's not going to give up.
And we're going to talk to him tomorrow.
I don't know if you gathered this. I found him to talk with, and we're talking in Kellen Moore terms.
Right.
He talked with a little bit more confidence and bravado today.
Seth, thank you. When he sat down and he kind of had this air about him that was like, what's up, y'all got questions?
Yeah.
It was like, whoa, hold on.
Whoa, who is this?
Kellen Moore.
Like, yes.
More. Yes, more.
That's funny.
You know what
because
I mean?
it didn't come that way off on the TV. But that's fascinating.
I was wondering.
100%.
That's funny because when he stepped to the mic, I was like, okay, like he knows what he like. It felt like a guy who knew what he was. Versus this time last year when training camp started, he knew
everything.
He's more comfortable.
I can give you the perfect example of Kellen Moore last year. Kellen, the first person that was cut from the team last year.
Yes.
He was like, we believe they're going to have an awesome career.
Shout out Josh Ball.
I see I'm not calling no names out.
No,
all right, I'm not saying no names.
It's good. This
is what we do on the 7 o'clock. We call names out.
But typically, the first person that gets cut in camp is not going to have an awesome career.
No,
maybe that will happen for him, right?
Maybe
that will happen for Josh Bell.
Awesome career in the CEO field in the private sector.
But mind you, he was talking about Alvin Kamara today, right?
Yeah.
And about the restructuring of the deal and like, okay, do you have a role? And he's kind of like, no, like we're gonna figure out his role, and like even that is something that he would have tiptoed around a little bit more last year in respect to who he is and what he means for the franchise. He wasn't disrespectful in any way.
No,
but it's kind of like it was realistic.
Yep.
It was, okay, we have all these guys. We really believe in our running back room. We knew he wasn't going to be here for most of OTAs and minicamp, so it was going to be a chance to look at these guys, and we're going to figure out his role when we figure out everybody else's role. It wasn't it wasn't a kissing of the feet.
Yeah, it wasn't
Alvin
like,
Kamara.
listen, we love him. He's going to be a huge part of what it is that we're doing. We see him as a part of our future. It was like, we're going to figure it out with him. We're going to get him out on the football field. We're going to get Travis Etienne Jr. out of the football field. We're going to get the rest of this running back room out on the football field. And then we're going to figure it out because that's what training camp is for. That's one of the things that I love about Kellen Moore is that he doesn't walk in and say, "Oh, okay, you're RB3 on the roster. Here's the RB3 binder.
This is what you do."
Right?
Don't should you? If you're a coach, you shouldn't do that. Right? That shouldn't be the approach to any of the players. Right? And the small, and I was going to say then the small little thing I had. The second.
Oh, that's right.
There's point 12.
Oh God, that's more.
We haven't gotten to the final slide of the slideshow yet. Our apologies.
Slide number 28.
Matt, this is really the office.
Slide number 28, guys.
Did you see how he was like, I'm gonna let everybody know I still got mine.
I still got mine.
Oh, I've got more.
And again, it's a small point. The Taysom Hill situation.
Yeah.
Like he said, I've talked to Taysom, but I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And then give
It sounded like a Facebook
and
message.
I just go, will you just tell us that he's retired already?
Yes.
Like that's
It sounded like a Facebook message.
Like I got my way. Like we know.
Yeah, that's my friend. It was my friend. It was almost like, that's my friend. Oh, well, how often do you talk to him? Oh, well, we sent Instagram videos back and forth to each other.
I saw a funny reel. I sent it to him on Instagram. He hasn't responded.
He did respond. He put the laughing emoji.
He did. Laughing or heart. One of the two. Yeah.
All right.
Glad you're well.
All right, I want to bring this thing back, though.
Please.
All right.
Yes. I'm sorry, that was
Land a plane. Land a plane.
Yeah, I'm going to try to land
Wait,
a
slide 30. No, I'm playing.
All right, look. We are very optimistic about what this team can accomplish. All four of us said that we think the Saints get into the playoffs. All four of us said we think this was on 4th Down on 4 this past Sunday. We all think that they win the division. We all think they win 9 games, right?
Yep.
But nationally, that's not where people are landing. I saw this ESPN computerized breakdowns, like 50 pages of printouts that had the Saints winning 7.2 games.
Yep.
The Las Vegas line is 7.5 on the over-under.
Yeah.
Nationally, they are way lower than people in New Orleans or any of us are right now. And you said this. We're talking about that in the sports office.
Yeah.
And you said, because all the things that we're saying, like we love how they rebuilt the offense, the wide receiver room. We love how they rebuilt the running back room. We love how they rebuilt the tight end room.
Yep.
We love this new look offensive line. All the things that we like are completely unproven. The only thing that's semi-proven is Tyler Shuck, who was, and I am Tyler Shuck's biggest fan right now, and I don't want this to sound like I'm not, he was the 20th ranked quarterback in the NFL last year. You're not going to a Super Bowl.
In passer rating?
In passer rating. You're probably not going to the playoffs with the 20th ranked passer. Obviously, he got better, and he showed a lot of things, and the way he navigated the pocket and all that is awesome. But the fact is, the numbers and the national are much lower on the Saints than we are, because a lot of the things that we see as, oh, yeah, that's a positive, are all unproven. That was your point. I think that's a great point. Just to bring people to a realistic expectation as we start. Right?
I think that there's a lot of stuff that we look at. Like, if you lay out every position group across this team, like, we might look at it and say, I really love what they did this offseason.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, I love what they did this offseason to rebuild their wide receiver room. That now is going to be a strength. We're looking at it that way.
Yes.
But those that aren't in the building, that aren't talking to the coaches, that aren't there, that aren't seeing all the little minutia things that we're seeing, they're seeing it instead. Whoa, we're seeing it instead as to be determined.
Yes.
Unproven, like you mentioned, right?
Unproven.
Which is
we can
true.
sit there and
Which
look at
is,
all
it
these-
is.
We could point to each one of these, like you would, like the four of us can with a binary go through every single position group and say that's a strength or that's a weakness.
Right.
Right.
Nationally, they can't do that.
Well, and to give, maybe shoot some bail to national, like the people that are trying to prognosticate this are not looking at the Saints with that type of microscope from week 1 to week 18.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about it the other day. If I told you, I don't know, after the Bears game last year when they were 2-6 or whatever it was, if I told you this team is going to end with a top 10 defense in the NFL, you would have looked at me like I was crazy.
You would have been crazy.
You would have been crazy. So
Maybe before the Bears game, because actually they performed well.
They performed well in the Bears game, and obviously there was a lot of turnovers, and that was kind of the fall. That was the fall of Spencer Rattler as far as the starting quarterback went. But I'm just saying, like, if I told you around that time, even still, like you could have said, okay, I see them improving. But if I said, okay, they're going to finish 9th, you'd have been like, all right, let's calm down a little bit.
Let's dial it back.
Which means that they had to be balling out of their minds at the end of the season. Like we said for so many, okay, they're number 1 for the last 4 weeks. They're number 1 for the last 5 weeks. Obviously, the offense, scoring-wise, still had some things to be desired, even once Tyler Shuck took over. But we saw the development. We saw the plays. You talk about that game against Tampa on the road in the sloppy conditions against a team that thought was a surefire pick to win the division, and they go in and they win that game, and that's the start of the run of 4 straight wins that they got. Like, we saw those things, and you almost have to be there to understand what the moment feels like. When you look at it, you can say, oh, well, they beat Tampa, who struggled at the end of the year. They beat Carolina, who, they won the division, but they're the weakest division winner in the league. Yeah, they beat Tennessee, and they beat the Jets, but that's Tennessee and the Jets. And it's like, okay, I get that. You know, like all of that being considered.
All true.
You have to see how it felt. It didn't feel like they were necessarily squeaking through. All of those wins were impressive in their own ways. And the Titans win it was impressive because of the way that they were able to come back.
You
know what I mean?
And part of this is that 30,000-foot view you have when you're covering stuff nationally, right?
Yes.
And that's
you're
the
covering
thing,
32 teams.
Nobody's diving into the NFC South when the NFC South is terrible.
Which, by the way, I think the NFC South as a whole will be better this year. I don't think they'll be the laughing stock the way that they've been the last few years.
Will the division be 500?
But there's a lot.
No, not quite.
And part of that is it is reputation. And for many years, the NFC South hasn't been good. Like it just hasn't.
Oh, they've been 500 for a long time.
Yeah,
so like you don't see people picking the Super Bowl winner from the NFC South.
Nor should they.
Nor should they.
Nor should they.
But that's the thing is it's nationally. I think it's okay that like nationally and for fans, if nationally they're not giving you paying you respect, like that's cool.
I love that.
Like that's fine. You don't want to be the one that everyone's talking about going in. Like that's just me personally. I'm sure the team would rather.
Listen,
no
one is more afraid of failing right now than the Los Angeles Rams.
Everyone's talking.
Everyone is on
you
there.
trail for Miles Garrett, and you have Matthew Stafford. You're supposed to be.
Which one? Aaron Donald's gonna get back. Aaron Donald's coming back in 2 weeks.
Retirement.
And you have Sean McVay. You're in a massive media market. Like all
if I can, I'm gonna shout out Aaron Donald's wife because I went to LSU with Aaron Donald's wife. Erica, you know what I mean? Yeah, random fact. But
you got Erica Donald in the
100%.
building.
Erica Donald's in the building. Yeah, what?
Seth is bringing some interesting stuff from the side.
I didn't doubt it. I just wanted to.
I will say this. Look, I thought last year, and I was in Chicago, and I thought that was the low point of the season.
Yeah,
it was the low point. I've covered this team for a long time. I was at training camp with the Saints in 1992.
Yeah.
So I've covered this team for a long time. That was one of the lowest points of all time to me for the Saints.
You know what's
was what they hit in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then by the end, this became the most fun 6-10 season of all time. And when I asked that about how the national media is perceiving, I asked that because I think they're wrong. I think what you said about they're just not as tuned in. I think the national media are wrong. My friends make fun of me because I make a lot of bets, but I make a lot of like $1 bets, $3 bets. Like I make the most ridiculous because I hate losing my money. So I make tiny bets, but I have already put $10 of my money.
That's 10
$10.
Well, I told you, like one of the
over 7.5.
I would smash that over.
And look, and one of the betting sites I was saying earlier had like the Saints not even the favorites to win the NFC South. Plus
No, they're not
65.
favorites.
If you've got some money and you want it like plus,
you want to bet $10.
But time out. If you got money, you can do that. Don't blame us if it goes wrong.
Oh, no. Right.
And don't blame the professionals.
Don't blame money you need for rent or for bills.
That's on you for following us.
Okay. But
bet your Chick-fil-A extra money.
I do love what you said about last year being at least the most fun finish to a 6-10.
I had a blast last season.
You know what's funny? A couple years ago, the Saints went 9-8. It's very hard to believe. But the Saints actually did go. They actually did go 9-8 in the first year.
The only winning season he's had in
Derek Carr.
Yeah.
And I have commonly said that is the worst 9-8 team I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, absolutely.
In my life, like the fact that team was 9-8 is such a mirage.
Right.
Such like the fact that they thought that was. Like it was
going somewhere.
It was the definition of purgatory.
Right.
Like that 9-8 was like, you know what I mean? Because it was like, oh, okay, like when you have a winning,
bringing the religious imagery.
When you have
like never before.
When you finish in the middle,
is this Sunday?
You believe that you can go somewhere. You're not going to heaven with Derek Carr as your quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's purgatory. It is.
I mean, with all due respect to Derek Carr and what he believes, you know what I mean? We on the same team in that regard, but like.
And real quickly, what I was going to say.
Please.
And real quickly, like.
This is 100% the sports talk.
This is.
What?
And now.
Wait a minute.
So now, we talked about the national, but like, again, this schedule, this team having a quarterback. Literally last year we watched the New England Patriots with a easy schedule get to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Saints are making the Super Bowl, but at the same time, you play who you play. And if you're better than a lot of teams on your plate, you get in the playoffs, anything can happen.
And if our prediction goes right, the Saints will be hosting a playoff
game. Yep.
They will be hosting a playoff game probably against the Seahawks or the Rams, to be honest.
Great.
But they will be hosting a playoff game.
And then we're just like,
if you're hosting a playoff game,
let the chips fall where they
the
may.
Panthers, who I think was wildly overrated last year, even though they won the division, the Panthers took the Rams to the finish line.
Yeah.
The Panthers
yes,
had
they
the
did.
Rams sweating,
They did.
and that was the difference in being at home.
And that's in Bank of America Stadium where some people show up. Imagine the Super.
Right.
All right,
That's what I'm saying.
we got like 2
I
minutes.
want to say one super quick thing about like the fun nature of the end of the season. I was pulling these stats up. Tyler Shough had a top 10 passer rating in the NFL in the final 2 minutes of games last year. And he had the 6th best completion percentage in the final 2 minutes of games. I think the measure of a really good quarterback and the measure of a really good football team as a whole is a team that can operate in the clutch and a team that can operate when things aren't perfect. So what you were saying earlier, who can win out of imperfection?
And that's why I'm excited about seeing the situational football we're going to see.
And I know you're calling your 20. One of my favorite plays was the touchdown that he threw against the Falcons after throwing that pick.
Yes.
Right.
Even though they didn't win that game, I thought that spoke to his character.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring this in. We got about a minute left.
Okay.
Here's what I think, and I think we're all in agreement, but I want to say this out loud. We think the Saints are going to be better this year. We think the Saints have a great chance to compete in this division and potentially win this division. We do not think, because of the depth issues, especially on defense, that they're a Super Bowl caliber team yet. But we all agree that between Mickey Loomis and Kellen Moore and Tyler Shough, that this team's moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Are we all on board with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
but Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald are still walking out there, so they're not Super Bowl contenders.
Yes, I mean, I think that's where we start this season.
I think those are fair expectations. I think if that's the bar, we're putting it right there. I like that.
And given that, I think this season is so exciting.
Me too.
The way, the way maybe like 08 and 09 were. Like and look, remember what happened with the Sean Payton, the rise. 06, they showed all these things. Then 07 and 08, they almost took a step back as they were growing. Then 09, all the stars lined up and it came together for the Super Bowl. And I think last year was the Saints 06. It wasn't. But it was the last 4 games were like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? I see where we're going.
And maybe this is the 06 in terms of result.
And maybe this is the 06 in terms of result.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, I think we're out of time.
I think
all right,
we're
look,
out of here.
thank you guys for this hour-long edition. Thank you for watching. The Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.